Okay, we're going to talk through the next 4 green models in this series of sound recipes. And just a reminder, just in case you haven't seen the prior videos, these are sound recipes, not patches, because the patch basically stays the same. The cabling stays the same. I'm taking a clock signal from PAMs and sending it into Plaits and the trigger. Sometimes I'll take the trigger out, but otherwise I'm just sending the out and the aux to your ears with a pitch coming from a sequencer through a quantizer so that we get a little bit of melody on a scale instead of random notes. But that's it, and we're just going to review the models on the green set of models on Plaits from number 5 through 8. This is firmware 1.2, but these are the green models that are available before firmware 1.2. So let's start with the 5th model. And the 5th model, using the cheat sheet that I put together, is the harmonic oscillator. And let's do a quick reminder that the envelope here is very important, the internal envelope. I'm only using the trigger and not going through a VCA, so I'm using the internal envelope. And the way to set that is by pressing this left button and turning morph to get the decay adjusted. So I press this, and in my first recipe, I'll get prepared for that. It needs a decay of 3 LED settings. You can see it goes up and down as I turn that. And now we're ready for the first recipe, which is called trombone. And we want to set harmonics to 9 o'clock, morph to 9 o'clock, FM counterclockwise, timbre to center, and everything else centered, and let's see what that sounds like. So that's got a little bit of a trombone sound. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is called Wah WAH, and this is getting a little bit of a slightly voice sound. We're going to go centered on harmonics, centered on timbre. Morph is going to go centered. FM will stay counterclockwise. And the envelope, I think, stays the same. Wah, wah, wah. So this is wah. Close enough. Let's go to the next one, which is called Pew Pew. You can imagine what Pew Pew sounds like already. And that can be pretty much any frequency, any harmonic, so we're going to play with that one. Timbre is going to be between 10 o'clock and clockwise, so I'll just leave timbre somewhere in the center there for now. Morph can even be pretty much anything, but FM is going to go clockwise. All right, that's Pew Pew. Let's go to the next one, which is actually called a Catt Purr. And for this one, we're going to take the trigger out, pull the trigger, as they say, go for a low frequency. And a Catt Purr, if you know what a cat purring sounds like, it's kind of a vibration. And harmonics can be almost anywhere. Timbre is going to be, if you're on a laptop without headphones, you might not even be able to hear this at the low frequency. That low frequency is what really sounds like the Catt Purr. Now let's move on to something we call flute or flute-ish. It's kind of flute-like. And the flute, we're going to go with a mid-frequency. I'll turn that down. I'll let you hear it a little bit as I go. Hopefully it's... Yeah, it's kind of flute-like. And timbre can be anywhere in this range. And this is very similar, but it's going to be called clarinet, or clarinet-ish, I think is probably more like it. We're going to go a little higher on the harmonics. We're going to put timbre at 10 o'clock. And we're going to go counterclockwise on morph, so it goes the other way on morph. And we got to go higher. So that's got a little bit of a clarinet feel to it. One more on this 5th model that we're going to play with, and this one is basically vowel sounds. So we're going to keep that trigger out still. We're just going to go with the pure sound from the oscillator, and we're going to go mid-frequency. We're going to modulate pretty much everything else. So as you modulate, you get those crazy vowel-like sounds. We're going to move now to mode number 6, the harmonic organ. So low to mid, we're going to go clockwise on harmonics, 2 to 3 o'clock on timbre, 3 o'clock on morph, meant to be a harmonic organ. Yeah, sounds like a harmonic organ. Okay, let's move to the next one, is a standing bass. And I call the standing bass 2 because I did a standing bass in the prior video, or maybe one before that. This one is going to be obviously a low frequency. And we're going to go, harmonics is going to be very specifically kind of 1230. There it is. So harmonics has to be closer to 1 o'clock. The next one is kind of another wah. It's like a weh wah. And let's see, it's harmonics at about 3 o'clock. Everything else centered, but FM is going counterclockwise. All right, another voice sound like a weh wah. All right, let's move on. This is the last one for number 6, the 6th mode. And this one I call Spaceship Chaos. This is a little different. Let's go a little higher on the frequency, kind of mid-high, clockwise on harmonics, and timbre will stay centered. This is one where the envelope needs to be lengthened, I think. There we go. Now you can see what I called it, Spaceship Chaos. Okay, we're going to move on to the next model, which is model number 7. And model number 7, oops, that's a very noisy one, you can see on the cheat sheet is chords. So chords is actually pretty interesting. We've got some interesting sounds coming here for model number 7. So first let's start with something that is not really trigger based. We're going to go with a low frequency. It's called the Doom Bass Drone. And we're going to start with harmonics down at about down counterclockwise. We can probably use this whole half of the harmonics. Timbre is going to be at 9 o'clock. Morph is going to be anywhere between 9 and 12, so we'll just start it somewhere in the middle. That's it there. Harmonics at 9 o'clock. Okay, let's move on. The next one is called the Halloween organ, and the Halloween organ does need the trigger. Let's turn the volume down so we don't crush ears here. And the Halloween organ also needs harmonics at about 11 o'clock. Timbre counterclockwise. Morph at about 10 o'clock. Sounds like the Halloween organ. Now in chords, the harmonics plays an important role because it sets the chord type, major, minor, seventh, sus, all the different chord types. I don't remember what they are, but if you look in the Platts manual online, you'll see the actual settings of each of the harmonic settings. The next one I call Arpegiate-ish. It's like an arpeggiator, but a little different. So let's set the frequency to mid. We'll go harmonics counterclockwise, timbre at about 9 o'clock, keeping the trigger in, and we're going. And you can get different chord qualities again with harmonics in this 7th model, but it sounds very arpeggiator-like. And we can move right into the next one, which is called piano sweep, and that's where we put harmonics closer to 12 o'clock. Sounds like somebody sweeping their hand across the keys. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Next one is called a congregation organ. So all these different organ types, I guess they rely on the chords. And the harmonics, again, can be on any of these chord qualities down in this end. We're going to go mid-high frequency. We're going to set timbre counterclockwise. I'm betting that this actually works pretty well without a trigger too. Yeah, so if you sequence this, this would sound like an organ at a kind of a congregation, a church. Now we're going to move on and we're going to get into this 8th model. This 8th model is kind of special. The whole half of the harmonics on the counterclockwise side are all kinds of voice-like tones, and on the right-hand side are complete word banks. So let's actually start this one. The first one I'm calling Dafty Punky. It's kind of Daft Punkish kind of sound. Harmonics are going to be around the 9 to 11 o'clock. Timbre is going to be at 9 o'clock. The timbre attenuverter is going to be clockwise. Morph we can almost do anything with, and the morph attenuverter is going to be clockwise as well. And this is one we can probably just play around with. I'm going to also change the envelope to be a little bit shorter. There we go. That's the Daft Punk sound-ish. You can play around with this and get it way perfected. That's it. Let's move into the next one. The next one is very similar, but it actually seems to say words, which is, it sounds like oh yeah. So we call this one oh yeah. Harmonics goes counterclockwise. Timbre goes to 9 o'clock. The attenuverter goes counterclockwise. That's the big difference on that one. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's move on to the next one, which is very similar. It's basically the same, except we move morph to the center and it goes basically, it drops the yeah, and it's called oi. Nice. Oi. And the next one is very similar. It's basically an ah sound, which is, the only difference is timbre is going to be centered. No, there's more of a difference. We're going counterclockwise on morph. You get all kinds of qualities on the timbre knob. The next one is I, which is very similar again, but on morph we're going to go a little positive here on, go to 12 or 3 o'clock and counterclockwise. And one more, very related, is I-O. Where on morph we're going to go counterclockwise. Oh, sorry, clockwise. I-O. And that's some of the voice-like sounds, but now let's move into the word banks. So we're going to move harmonics to the 12 o'clock position and start the word banks. You heard some of those in the intro. And the first one is actually the rainbow colors. So you'll hear the rainbow colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, ROYGBIV. And we're going to go with the harmonics in the center, timbre in the center, those centered. Morph is going to vary. What happens here is this chooses, harmonics chooses the word bank, morph chooses the word in that word bank, and timbre chooses the character of the voice. And then these attenuverters choose the speed on the morph attenuverter, the speed of the speech, and the FM sets the intonation, so it sounds like a question or a statement. And timbre can be, the timbre attenuverter sounds like it could be anything. So let's hear this.
Red, 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 red.
Change the word.
Red, red, orange, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, violet.
We can change the speed.
Green, 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 blue, 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 blue.
So with a faster speed, I can have more triggers and still get the full word.
Green, 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 green.
And then I can change the intonation. There it is. The FM.
Blue, indigo, blue, yellow, 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 yellow.
So you get the idea. And then each of the next recipes are different word banks. So the next word bank is counting 1 to 10. Sorry, that's counting 0 to 10.
0, 1, 3, 5, 8, 9, 10, 9, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5.
5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5.
5.
The next recipe is the alphabet. The next recipe is radio speak, which are those words that you use when you're on a radio to tell people what letter you're saying.
India, India, Alpha, 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 Bravo, Charlie, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Juliet, Juliet, Kilo, Quebec, Sierra, Victor, X-Ray, Lulu, Lulu, Lulu,
Lulu, Lulu.
And the last one is technical jargon.
Waveform, oscillator, instrument, analog, clock, filter, knob, machine, knob, modular, instrument, generator, filter.
And that's it. Those are the recipes for models 5 through 8.
Filter, knob, modulator, operator, oscillator, patch, sequencer, patch, oscillator, operator, oscillator, operator.